we're great big chemistry sets, like we're chemical reactions just going off. And so what is it about those chemical reactions that are working well or not working well, and what are the things that are influencing that?
I'm looking for the short manifesto people can start with. What I observe is it's the beginning of 2026. People are thinking, look, I want to do differently. So I thought, what'd be wonderful if we could say, well, why don't you just start here? You don't have to go full on.
When the body hasn't got energy coming in, its natural response is to go and access what we've got stored, which is exactly what we want it to do. But if we eat too frequently, we don't give it the opportunity to ever do that. Eat less, move more, dietary advice we've been given for 50 years, doesn't work. Because
in the spirit of having a better 2026, I was thinking, how do we live better, have a better life? What should we be eating? How do we exercise? How do we sleep better? How do we position ourselves to live a longer, healthier life? So I found David Beard. He's an expert in metabolic health and an exercise physiologist. This is really fascinating. It breaks down a lot of the myths and a lot of the misinformation we're fed. Come and have a listen. I'd be very comfortable to say that today people's attitude toward food is influenced through marketing, either directly by, if I sell a burger, I want you to buy my burger. I'm going to do everything I can to entice you to come and shop with me and buy my burger, to food companies who are businesses. And they'll use, the bigger they are, the more money they've got, they'll use every level of influence they can to make sure their share price grows, especially if they're public. So I think everybody can really understand the drivers behind that. The burning question for me, or for you, that I'd love you to weigh in on is, what are those simple things that we really should be doing to look after our metabolic health from a food perspective? And then I might ask you, what is metabolic health? Because maybe I've jumped the gun there.
But yes, I know. That's what is it? What is metabolism? What is it? What is metabolic health?
So maybe start there. What is it, David?
Well, metabolic health really is or metabolism is all the chemical reactions and physiological things that are going on in our body to convert energy from food that we eat into energy that our body can use. That's kind of what metabolism is, if you like, all that. And it's not just at the physiological level, it's also at the cellular level. So what's going on within the cells, because we're great big chemistry sets, like we're chemical reactions just going off. And so what is it about those chemical reactions that are working well or not working well, and what are the things that are influencing that to help people produce the amount of energy that they need, to store energy when there's excess but not store too much, to be able to access energy they've got stored, because fat on our body is just stored energy. So, we're physiologically designed, a bit like bears, eat up when there's plenty of energy, plenty of food available, store some away for later, and then access it when we need it. Problem for humans is, we don't hibernate like bears and go for a long period without eating. So a lot of people get really good at storing it and not really good at accessing it later on, and then they just wonder why they can't lose weight, but they can't access their fat stores when they need them.
And holding too much of that energy or fat causes other issues, doesn't it?
Especially depending on where it's stored. So the liver primarily converts excess sugar into fat, and then some of that gets stored around the body, but some of that gets stored within the liver and around the organs, and that can be dangerous because fat's not just a storage. It also produces chemicals which can cause inflammation and disrupt other processes in the body and in the brain.
So that becomes particularly interesting because a lot of the people I talk to, they're very busy, either in businesses or in professional jobs. And in conversation, there's I think a pretty common theme of, I want to smash this out because they're good, mentally well-functioning people. No, I just want to get this done. But I find I run out of energy really quick. And I find my concentration, it's not where I want it to be or where I need it to be. I can't really talk to anybody about it for a whole bunch of reasons. but it's a problem for me.
Yeah, it's quite common. People kind of running on that short-term energy supply.
Yeah.
Yeah, and which is great when you need it, but you need it when you're moving. Like, if you're running away from a lion or running to catch a bus, you need that short-term energy. But most of the time we don't. We just need the slow burn, produce consistent amount of energy in the body and a consistent amount of energy into the brain. I mean, the brain makes up like 2% of our weight, but it uses about 25% of the energy demands. So if that's not getting the energy that it needs, then we start to feel sluggish and tired and fatigued and can't brain fog and whatever else.
So what would you say to people who have that issue? What would we do differently?
Certainly look at the way they're fueling themselves. A lot of people, again, go for the short-term quick hit. I'm not going to say coffee because coffee's not an energy source, but, they go for the sugar hit or the something sweet to get them through, the Mars bar mid-afternoon, which gives them an instant hit, but it doesn't last long because the physiological changes that happen when we do that kind of give us a spike, and then the body compensates for that spike in blood glucose. Then we get, an insulin kick in, and then we get fatigue. And insulin is the hormone that kind of drives a lot of that energy storage. So we will get an insulin hit, and depending on whether we're insulin resistant or not, and that's a whole another topic, if the body's pumping out too much insulin, we'll get too big an insulin hit, and insulin will stop us from accessing our fat stores, our stored energy.
Wow.
That's its job. Insulin's job is to store energy away. One of them, it does hundreds of things, but one of the primary ones is to store energy away and protect our energy stores, our fat stores. So if insulin's a bit high, we can't access fat stores to burn for energy. So whenever we get a bit low on fuel, we feel like we have to eat again, whereas we might have, 50 kilos of body fat or 10 kilos of body fat lasting us, that we could access if insulin wasn't stopping it.
So the sugar hit should be out.
Yeah.
So if you say, look, cut the sugar hit, number one.
Yeah.
What would we replace that with?
Well, the big push now and the the food guidelines are now changing. We need to be getting more protein. If you're over any age, kids growing, pregnant women, everybody really probably isn't getting enough protein or probably isn't getting enough protein. If they've been following the guidelines of, what it used to be, 0.8 gram per kilogram body weight, that's enough to prevent malnutrition and fading away, but it's not optimal. And that's coming out now. We need more protein. Yeah. And the fat that comes with protein. So if we look at, and I know there's a big push not to eat more animal products, but animal products basically combine protein and fat. We absorb protein better when we eat it with fat.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Nature's marvellous, isn't it? If you look at animal products, which is protein and fat, we absorb the protein better. When we eat protein with carbohydrates, a la legumes and chickpeas and plant-based, we can't absorb the protein as effectively.
I'm just so tempted to go down the rabbit hole and I cannot help myself. So I heard that if you eat vegetables, vegetable matter, before you drink alcohol, your uptake of alcohol is slower. So it doesn't stop it, but it's slower because the fibres from the vegetable matter crudely block the intake pathway between the membranes of our stomach and blood. Is that true? And does that have any correlation with what you're saying, protein absorption?
Protein would probably do it more effectively than fibre.
Yeah, okay.
And we don't absorb things in our stomach. Like our stomach's just the churning area. We basically absorb it in the small intestine. So the stomach's just to mix it all up, acid to break it all down, et cetera, Then when it passes into the small intestine, that's when we start absorbing.
Oh, that's the action.
So the stomach doesn't do the absorbing.
Right.
The stomach's just like the washing machine, mixes it all up, and then it goes into the intestines where it starts absorbing. So anything that slows down the process within the stomach and lets it digest better will slow down the absorption because it gets slower at getting into the insulin, into the intestines.
Yeah. So we go, okay, eat more protein. So I get up in the morning. For me, I have coffee because I love it, but I have a couple of poached eggs and either toast or rice or something. That gets me going.
Yep.
And what would I do? Because 3 o'clock comes, and I know sometimes energy drops. What would I do during the day so that doesn't happen? Because I figure by the time that happens, aside from the sugar hit, it might be a bit late.
Yeah.
Is that right?
So you're having, what time are you eating? You're having your eggs and?
Probably between 6 and 7.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big fan on delaying that first meal as late as you can.
Yep.
Yeah. And it doesn't always work for people's schedules necessarily, but I think that's a good strategy for a couple of reasons. One, you get a longer period where you're not eating, that fasting, from dinner last night till when you eat the next day.
Yep.
That longer that period, the body goes, when the body hasn't got energy coming in, its natural response is to go and access what we've got stored, which is exactly what we want it to do. But if we eat too frequently, we don't give it the opportunity to ever do that. And that's for a lot of people. And the advice they've been given, make sure you eat every 2 hours so you don't get hungry. Well, that's the worst advice ever for people who are insulin-resistant diabetic. We actually want the body to get into that state where it's got to access its stored energy.
So get rid of snacks too.
Get rid of snacks. Yeah, get rid of snacks. Why do we went for millions of years. We didn't just pop down to the 7-Eleven and buy a muesli bar, and we survived.
Yeah.
And the people who survived the best are the ones who could go for a longer period of time without eating, because they might go for a week or 3 days or something before they caught their next meal. And there's this belief that, if you don't eat, your metabolism will slow down. Well, it's actually the opposite. It speeds up a bit, and the speed of your metabolism doesn't vary a great. It's more dependent on size. Like a big person will have a higher metabolism because higher resting metabolic rate, because they've got a big engine to carry. If you've got a V8 car, you need a big engine.
Yep.
There's this belief that if you don't eat, your metabolism will slow down is just completely false. And yet people have been fed that for so long. And I think it came from the belief that if people get hungry, they're just going to grab anything. Well, being hungry is a good thing. It is important then when you do eat that you make good choices. But the belief that you should never get hungry is just so far wrong from a metabolic health point of view.
So for those that can, delay that first meal.
Yep.
So coffee's all right.
Yeah.
You go, that's not
I like coffee.
anything.
I'm not going to tell people not to have their coffee. And there's good evidence. Obviously, if they're having 5 or 6 milky coffees a day, milk's got a fair bit of sugar in it.
Yeah,
So
okay.
you want to be avoiding that. I tend to have a long black with a bit of cream in it now, so I get the creamy taste, take the edge off the black coffee, without the sugar hit. Coffee's okay. But again, I encourage people to, the first thing they should do every day is move.
Yeah,
Get
okay.
up, get outside, get some sunshine, light on your eyes. That's great for sleep. Get moving. You're exercising in a fasted state, so naturally the body's got to get energy from that we've got stored, either sugars, glucose stored in the muscles, or fat that we've got stored on our body somewhere.
So when you say exercise when you get up, I'm assuming you don't mean you need to go to the gym. It doesn't have to be heavy exercise.
It doesn't have to be heavy. No, in fact, I think from a physiological point of view, we're better off doing that aerobic type, going for a bike ride, going for a walk, going for a run, swim. That aerobic exercise seems to be better from a physiological benefit point of view early in the day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the gym stuff, which is important, being strong, over 50, the biggest risk is we get frail and muscles, and we will lose muscle mass. We can delay it and minimise it if we're active and doing resistance training, weight training. That's probably better off late in the day when our body temperature is a bit higher.
Yep.
Able to do it better.
Yeah. So I guess I'm looking for the short manifesto people can start with, because what I observe is it's the beginning of 2026. People are thinking, look, I want to do differently, but they end up not doing differently. There's no plan in place. So I thought, what'd be wonderful if we could say, well, why don't you just start here? You don't have to go full on. If you get up in the morning, just delay your first meal.
Yep, that's a good start.
Start with that.
Yep.
Get rid of snacks.
Move.
Yeah, move.
Get up, get outside, do some movement. Yeah. And then delay your first meal until you get hungry. And typically exercise, it reduces our hunger. We don't get starving straight after exercise. So people have also been fed this belief you have to eat within 30 minutes, otherwise you don't use the energy. Well, that's ridiculous. Like, it doesn't make sense, and it's not true. So our body's smart enough to know if it's 31 minutes, we're still going to use what we've just eaten. You don't have to eat within 30. And if it's 2 hours, that's okay. Like I said, our bodies physiologically are designed to access energy we've got stored. So we're trying to encourage that process to happen.
That's a good anchor, isn't it? If we can just remember, hey, our body's programmed for this. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, our modern environment and our modern food supply disrupts that for a lot of people. Like I said before, insulin sort of stops that accessing our stored energy, but that's how we're designed. At rest, 80% of our energy should be coming from burning body fat or burning fat, either fat we've eaten or fat we've got stored, depending on people's lifestyle and choices and food choices particularly, will stop that from happening effectively.
What should we eat?
Real food. Meat and veg. Really, meat and veg. And I know there's a big push to get people to eat less meat. But that physiologically, we're omnivores, and we're designed to get our protein from animal products much more effectively than from plants.
Yep.
It's just that's a reality. That's a physiological reality. So why would you choose? It's a bit like saying, well, put diesel in your car when it's designed to, use unleaded. It's not going to work as well. Not going to work, but not a great example. But yeah.
So if I follow this through, then to say, I'm going to make some changes, and if I do them incrementally, it's not a big deal.
No.
So let me do something that's simple. Get up in the morning, have my coffee, get outside, even if it's light exercise, do a bit, get on with my day. Want to get hungry, eat.
Absolutely.
If we can eat meat and veg, great. Where do carbs have a place in that?
Well, carbs are our short-term energy supply.
Yep.
And we were never really designed to eat lots of them. But unfortunately, the food dietary guidelines that came out in the 70s and 80s from the US, and there was a big argument back then about whether carbohydrate, sugar or fat was the cause of heart disease, and there was some academic debate about that. And unfortunately, the guy Ansel Keys, who believed it was fat, he won the argument. I would say he was wrong, and all the evidence is now pointing the fact that it was sugar that was the problem, not fat, and we're slowly getting back to it. So carbs have a place, but for some people, we certainly don't need as many as we think we need. For most people, some people are more able to process carbs and use it and store it and short-term supply and use it up, and others not.
Yep.
And so that is an issue for some people. The amount of carbs they can tolerate effectively is different. And that's kind of one of the areas I work in that metabolic health, is helping people identify, are they good at using sugar for energy or fat for energy, and then how do we manipulate modify their food intake to suit their body.
Yeah, so you tailor it to the person, because not everybody's the same, right?
No, I tailor it to the person, but I'm also also giving advice to try and get them better at being what we call metabolically flexible. So that's a weird term, but what it really means is being able to switch between burning sugar and fat as the demands require. Yep. A lot of people I see are metabolically inflexible. They're stuck, dependent on sugar for energy.
Wow.
And not fat. And that's partly to do with that insulin and insulin resistance, etc. And so, they can't access their fat stores. So whenever they've run out of sort of sugar stores in the body, and we can't store much, about a day's supply, then they get hungry. So then they feel like they have to eat again, and there's this vicious cycle. So we try to change things to help them get better at burning fat. Like I said, at rest, physiologically at rest, 80% of our energy should be coming from burning fat. For a lot of people, I see a lot of people that's not the case. Not the case.
I find, so I've done experiments on myself. So I've found, for me and my metabolism, I think clearer, and I've got more energy if I eat very little carbs and go veggies and meat. So even without the advice, so just through experimentation, I go, that actually works better, and I feel better. I cannot tell you, I can't break down and analyse why I feel better, but I do.
Yeah, a couple of reasons that jump out. When we burn fat, the liver produces ketones. Now, I know the keto diet has got a whole lot of bad press and some of it justified, but when we burn fat, we produce ketones. Ketones can get to the brain, and the brain can use ketones instead of glucose for energy. And it appears that the brains preferentially prefer ketones, and we don't get some of the inflammation that comes from sugar in our brains. In fact, one of the really interesting study looking at people with Alzheimer's seem to be less effective at burning ketones and relied on sugar more. People who didn't get Alzheimer's seem to be better at burning ketones in their brain. And one of the proposed treatments to help minimise the impacts of Alzheimer's, of dementia, and preventing it is a low carbohydrate, high fat diet, because the ketones provide the fuel source for the brain, which the brain seems to prefer. That's part of the brain fog bit.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And the other fatigue bit that we get when you said about eating less carbs, you feel better. When we eat carbs, the body releases insulin to deal with the carbohydrates, blood sugar levels. Well, insulin's job is to maximise energy storage, so it naturally makes us tired and fatigued. It's the old, have a big meal at lunchtime, got to have a nap. Well, that's insulin just telling you to slow down, so we store as much as we can for later. Perfectly doing what it's designed to do, just, not that great if you've got a business meeting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah. So, all right, I'll wind this back a bit.
Yeah.
So get up in the morning, have my coffee, that's fine. Get outside, get some sunlight, a bit of exercise of any sort at this stage, because I just want to get into the habit.
Yep.
Delay my first meal until I'm hungry.
Yeah, until you're hungry.
So there's no time, just when you're hungry.
I tell people, if you don't get hungry till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, that's okay. I often nowadays don't eat till 11, 12, depending on... I don't book a lunch break in my clinic when I've got appointments, and I'll eat when I get a break. And I don't tend to get, when you don't eat a high carb meal, you don't tend to get that craving. Like, that's a brain craving for looking for sugar. It's not the body. It's the brain saying, give me sugar, give me sugar. When you're able to burn fat for energy and then produce ketones that the brain can use, you don't get that same, got to eat something. You might feel empty, but you don't feel that craving for sugar that people get.
That's a funny thing, because I go through. I love sugar, right? Chocolates and at night time, don't leave a box next to me. Everyone in the household knows, dude. You buy a packet of biscuits, unless if you ban me from it and you say you are not allowed to have that, I won't touch it. But if you don't ban me and it's sitting there, if it survives 10 minutes, you're lucky. And the whole thing will be gone. I'll smash it. What I've found is I'll go through periods where I actually don't feel like it. And those periods are coincided with eating more meats and veg.
Yep.
And if I don't eat any snacks or sugary foods for a week, actually
don't miss them.
Well, not only don't I miss them, I actually don't really like them. So I'll eat it. And it must be habitual. Okay, yeah, that's good. And I stop and think about it. Okay, what's good about it? And I actually go, no, it actually doesn't make me feel good.
Yeah. And, carbohydrate, if we again look at physiology, carbohydrate type foods, which were available in, and I go back to bears, we think of, I'm showing my age here, but Yogi Bear, used to find the honey and eat as much as he couldn't stop. That's kind of how they're designed. In summertime, when there's fruit and berries and whatever else they can get, eat as much as you can, and when you eat those things, you're physiologically designed to get as much as you can to store fat away for hibernation.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's why when you're not eating them, you don't get those cravings, because you're not getting the physiological message to get as much as you can. Yeah. So it's hard to stop at, one slice of bread. But it's not like you feel like you got to eat 7 steaks.
Yep.
After one, you're full. But with bread and carbs and things, your physiology is telling you to eat more. And people often say, oh, it's all about willpower. Physiology will trump willpower every time. If you're physiologically getting this message, you need sugar, you need carbs, I don't care how much willpower you've got, it's hard to fight that. It's hard to fight. That's why the eat less, move more dietary advice we've been given for 50 years doesn't work. Because like if you invited me to a party and you said we're going to have fantastic food, Dave, make sure you come really hungry, what are the things that I would do? I would exercise as much as I could and I would not eat anything. Right? Well, both of those things are going to make me get to your party as hungry as I can. That's the advice we've been telling people for 50 years. Move more, eat less. Well, all that's going to do is make you hungry. Well, it's hard to fight that. It's hard to fight hunger. Like it's hard to fight. If you're tired, it's hard to not fall asleep. The physiology drives the behaviours a lot.
So if you change what you eat, your physiology will drive you differently.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And that's that metabolic flexibility. If you're able to switch between burning fat and sugar effectively, then it's not like you're starving yourself. You're just going to access food that you ate 3 weeks ago or, 3 days ago or whatever you've got stored on your body. People go, oh, don't I need the energy? And I go, I'm a relatively lean person. I go, I've got enough fat stored on me to last me months. If I stopped eating, I'm not going to run out of energy because I've got it stored. And, I've got a lot less than a lot of people walking around. I joke about, a number of years ago there was a prospector that got lost out in the wheat belt looking for something.
Yeah.
And they made big headlines because he survived eating ants. Like Ant-Man, they call it. That was the headline. It just stuck in my brain. And they said, he survived by eating ants. And I looked at the photo of him and I'm going, man, he had enough fat stored on him. And he wasn't huge, but he had enough fat stored on him to last him 6 months. And they're going on that if he hadn't eaten ants, he would have died. Well, that was, it's just perpetuating that myth that we have to eat every couple of hours, otherwise everything's going to shut down. It's not how we're designed.
Well, that's good news, really, isn't it?
It is.
When you think about it, you go, okay, well, actually, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
You can eat less and you'll be all right. But if you change what you eat, that's the message I'm hearing.
Yeah.
If I do those things, first meal a little later, eat predominantly meat and veg.
Real food.
We'll probably get rid of that craving at 3 o'clock and that brain drain. Get rid of snacks.
Yeah.
Don't do the Mars bar.
No.
And would I be right in then extending that to say likely you'll sleep better?
Yeah. Yeah, you will. If your energy levels and your metabolic health is good, sleep would be better, especially even getting up and moving in the morning. From a sleep perspective, one of the best strategies to improve your sleep quality and timing of sleep is have a consistent time to get up in the morning and get outside and get some sunshine on your eyes early in the day. That seems to set that whole circadian rhythm, and the hormones that control that, serotonin, melatonin, seem to work better, if you like, if we're moving early in the day. And then the food's keeping our energy levels sort of constant during the day, not getting that blood glucose, insulin spikes all day, will help with sleep.
What are the other important big ticket items we should keep in mind, do you think? So we've touched on food.
Yeah.
We've just barely touched on sleep. I know all these are really big topics.
Yeah. The two big ones I believe, food and exercise, they're the two big ones. But sleep and stress, the four kind of core pillars, I reckon. So, and they all work together. If we're eating, fueling ourselves well, if we're exercising regularly, and the exercise it's a stress. So it basically gets the body to do more than it does at a resting level, so that the day-to-day stuff is easy. I tell people exercise is, you got to think of it like an investment. You need to invest an hour a day to make the other 23 hours easier and better. So the exercise, depending on which type of exercise, it stimulates all those chemical processes and physiological changes that happen, so the engine runs better. That's really all it is.
Pretty simple when you break it down, isn't it?
It is simple, yeah. I think we tend to complicate it a lot. And hopefully we're getting back to simplifying a bit. Move more, do some exercise that really stimulate. You really have to get puffed. I tell people when I do some talks for groups, I say with your aerobic exercise, most of it can be at a relatively comfortable pace, but some of it you need to get puffed. You need to be breathing hard. For a couple of minutes, that high intensity intervals that we talk about. But, go fast for the next block as fast as you can. And, depending on age and fitness and stuff, fast for them is going to be different for different people.
So it's just fast for you?
Yeah, fast for
There's
you.
no benchmark against another person. Well, just benchmark against yourself.
Yeah. And people go, oh, do I measure it? Need to measure my heart rate? I said, if you're breathing hard, you'll know. Like, if you're puffing, that means your heart and lungs are working hard.
Yep.
So you can go and invest in a heart rate monitor if you want, but you don't really need it. Like I got a heart rate monitor like everybody did, and after about 3 rides, I could just about tell you what my heart rate was, depending on how hard I was breathing and how much uncomfortable it was. So heart rate monitors have got a place, but I don't know for the general population. If you're puffing, something's working.
What are the myths around exercise?
That we have to go hard all the time. I see that a lot. I've been bike riding for 40 years. I sort of started bike riding, doing triathlons in America when I was studying over there. And I see lots of groups now that think they have to go hard all the time. Particularly the middle-aged men that get into cycling think they've got to go hard. And I think that's a myth. We don't. Most of the time we can be going at it needs to be exercise, but it doesn't need to be flat out on the rivet the whole time.
Yep.
We do need a little bit of hard. So, like I said, walk fast for the next block, or do 1 lap fast in the pool and then have a couple of slow ones, get to a hill, go hard, that kind of thing. But it doesn't all have to be hard. The other myth, I think people think that just going for a walk's enough. And I think it's one of the reasons that exercise physiology, which I'm an exercise physiologist, as a profession struggles a little bit, because the person is doing the work, but also a lot of people think, oh, well, I exercise, I just go for a walk. Well, that's not enough. As we get older, we know strength and maintaining muscle mass and maintaining bone mass, etc., is important. You don't get that as effectively just going for a walk. So it's simple, but it's not quite that simple. Just go for a walk.
Yeah, you need some stress on your body.
You need some stress on the body, yeah.
To give it the impetus to grow.
Need to be demanded of, so they maintain strength. Our bodies will adapt to the greatest stress that's placed on them. If the greatest stress for you is walking out to the letterbox to check the mail, your body will adapt to that and only be at that capacity, if you like. So you need to stress it more than the things you do naturally in the day to maintain our physiology, our muscle mass, our bone mass, etc.
So another interesting topic. I think I could talk to you all day, but I won't, because you're also busy. We're living longer than we ever used to, for lots of different reasons. I don't think our nutrition's as great, but we are living longer. So as a consequence of living longer, I wonder if we have to be more mindful of what we're doing today to make sure that in 20, 30 years, actually the ride is okay. Because I look at... I've got friends who are 80, and you wouldn't know it. They're 80 years old. They're cognitively better than the 40-year-olds I know, and physically they seem in better function and better health. Yeah. They don't do anything amazing. They don't subscribe to diets. Because I ask them all the time, what do you do? They tend to have a routine, I find, a lot of them. But they're in really good shape at 80.
Yeah.
And they go, yeah, look, I might make it to 90, but I don't want to be dilapidated. And then I see people who are like 60 and, they're starting to curve over. They've physically slowed down. They look terrible.
Yeah.
And I'm only generalising, of course.
Yeah, but
I wonder if some of those habits and mindfulness of, okay, what I'm going to do today will affect me later down the track. How do I want to be?
Yeah.
Becomes a really important conversation to have with yourself now.
Absolutely. I do some talks for groups and talk about what I learnt in aged care, and we can talk about that in a bit. But I tell people that the choices you make in the first 75 years determine what the last 25 will be like. The first 3 quarters determine what the last quarter will be like. So it is just building habits and routines. Exercise is all about habit. Like people go, oh, how do I, I admire these people who get up every morning and do their exercise. I said, it's just routine. Like it's just, if I had to stop and think about every morning I woke up, what am I doing today? Have I got my gear ready, et cetera, like I would talk myself out of it and stay in bed. So you've got to get it to such a habit and routine that you don't think about it. It's Tuesday, that's the day I go for a ride, or it's Wednesday and that's the day I swim, or whatever, or it's morning and I go for a walk every morning. Whatever it is, it's just about habit and routine. Hardest part about exercise is getting out the door. I tell people, the hardest part about going for a walk or going for a run is putting your shoes on. Once they're on, you're kind of committed. Go out and do 10 minutes. And I play some mind games with myself. So I've got what I call the 10-minute rule. If I wake up and I really don't feel like going, and this doesn't happen much now, but every now and then you have a day, I say, I'm going to go out for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, if I still feel like I'm really not enjoying this, I'll come home and go back to bed. Once you're out, like I've only done that twice over the last 40 years, and both times I was coming down with a cold or a flu or something, and I probably should have been in bed. But that gets me out the door. Like you got to remove the burden from getting started with exercise, and then just, I tell people, establish a good exercise habit routine, and then defend that with your life, because that becomes important. So the people you talked about in their 80s, they're just consistent about their exercise.
Yep.
And same with food. You just, we all eat the same things. Most, week in, week out, we tend to eat the same things, or just pick the things that are better for you, and you'll get used to eating those, and then you don't think about it so much. So exercise and food to a degree is all just about habit and routine, and then making sure that the exercise that you're doing is the most effective and efficient that it can be. I talk about, in a talk I do around exercise, I say, you want to exercise smart, and I don't mean those SMART goal things. I kind of hate that. But is it effective and is it efficient? Because you don't want to be spending, 6 hours out there exercising if you can get the same benefit in 1 hour. So you want to make sure what you're doing, and that's where that little bit of high intensity, if you're working in a gym and doing some strength training, make sure you're pushing yourself to the point that you're actually getting benefit. Don't go and spend an hour there pushing weights that don't really tax the muscles. Make sure you're working hard in that little hour to get the benefit that you need and you want.
Well, that's also important, isn't it? You don't have to spend hours on end.
No.
Just make sure that the time you do spend is valuable.
Yeah.
And if all of this leads to better cognitive ability and clarity, certainly in our world, our belief is you're actually going to perform better. If you perform better, your results are going to be better. So it's almost as if to say the baseline is accept, number one, you're a human being. And as a biological entity, there are a few things that define you that you can't get around. You can't mark it around. It just is. So if you decided to change today, eat differently, predominantly meat and veg, cut out the snacks, dump the Mars bars, immediately you're going to be better off, and exercise, of course. Yeah. And that if that was your baseline, you're probably going to be more successful across the board.
And that period, that last decade of life or 2 decades of life or whatever it is, the chances of you having better health in that period, and that's the thing what people want. People don't necessarily want to live long. Yeah, we all want to live a long time, but no one wants to live a long time if they're incapacitated and a burden, etc. So what we really want is health span. We want to be as healthy as we can for as long as we can, and then when age finally catches up with us, and it catches up with everybody, we want that decline to be as short as possible. I talk about, in a talk that I do, I talk about the Wile E. Coyote effect. Remember Wile E. Coyote used to chase the roadrunner, and he would invariably miss the edge of the cliff and disappear in a cloud of dust. I think it's how we want to live our life, flat out, doing all the things we want to do, and then disappear in a cloud of dust very quickly. And that's about health span. We all want to be able to keep doing the things that we've always done for as long as possible. And we have to modify them. Like I said, I've mentioned before, I've been riding a bike and started off doing triathlons 40-odd years ago. And, I certainly can't go as fast as I could even 10 years ago. So you've got to accept that we will slow down, but the consistency of being able to keep doing things is important.
Yeah, and you have reminded me, I shouldn't even need reminding of this, that you realise the importance of your health when you're really crook. And then you get better because the body's good at repairing itself and you forget about it again.
Yeah, we take our health. Health's one of those things we take for granted until we haven't got it. And once our health goes, it becomes the number one priority for so many people who retire and spend all their time at specialists and doctors and trying to work out how to get their health back. If they had made different choices maybe. And I know genetics does play a part and sometimes you're unlucky and have accidents and things. But you don't want to spend the last 20 years of your life just paying for your specialist Mercedes car or, holiday home at Bunker Bay kind of thing. You want to be doing what you want to do. So you either pay for your health early in life or you pay for it late. I'd rather pay for it a little bit along the way. And also it helps us perform better now as well as
you live a better quality of life. I feel it when I eat and exercise better.
I did a workshop years ago looking at core values, and one of my core values that I kind of realise is always in the back of the decisions I make is about freedom. And being fit and healthy gives you freedom. It gives you more choices. It doesn't give you complete freedom, but it gives you a lot more choices. If you haven't got health, your choices become limited. What you can do, where you can go, can you travel, et cetera, To me, I'd rather pay for it now along the way so I've got more choices. If someone said to me tomorrow, do you want to, let's go for a ride, we're going to ride down to Fremantle and have lunch, I could go, yeah, that's fine. If you haven't got the health or fitness to be able to do it, you can't do that. And it's a bit of an extreme example. Not many people ride to Freo for lunch, but the healthier you are and the fitter you are, the more choices and freedoms you've got in life. And that's important.
You've written a book, David.
I have.
It's there. I love it. One of the things I love is that it's small. It's not a big book.
Yeah.
If I'd only known I'd lived this long.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
Well, I've realised I've been really lucky in my career. I've had jobs that I've learnt from, like all the jobs that I've really loved, and I've made a few detours that maybe weren't the right decision, but the ones I'm really passionate about are where I keep learning and they help me. I was lucky to get a job working in the aged care industry back in the late 80s, and I was probably the first exercise physiologist to work in the aged care industry. I was running health and fitness programs as well as other things, activities, etc., to try and keep the people in the retirement homes and the hostels fitter and healthier so they didn't end up in the nursing home. That was kind of the premise of the job. It was one of the first not-for-profit groups. It was Church of Christ Homes, which is now the Bethany Group, one of WA's biggest aged care providers. So I went there running programs for all the oldies. And, I went there to teach them stuff. But when you're working, I was in my late 20s, when you're working with people in 80s, 90s, over 100, you get to learn a lot. And I really learnt a lot. And I started just writing things down. And eventually someone said, you should put those in a book. And that's where the book came from. And it was written from the perspective of what do young people need to know before they get old.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And people go, what's old? And if you ask someone what's old, usually they'll add 10 years to where they're at now. You ask a 20-year-old what's old, they'll go, 30, that's old. So whatever age, it applies to any age, but that was kind of the perspective. You need to know this. It's like you said before, you talk to 80-year-olds and they've had these habits and routines. Well, they've learnt those over the years. And these are the things I think people need to know, things that came up for me about nice to know this. Not all about health and fitness. There's stuff on money and relationships and a whole lot of things in there that just jumped out at me. And so I put them all together in this little book. It's been good. I'm on my 5th print run and it's been quite a popular it's a coffee table book. If you look at you could read it in a couple of hours on a plane flight somewhere. But there are a whole lot of little lessons and it's all common sense stuff, but it's in a way that helps people kind of remind them about things that maybe they've forgotten are important.
How do they find the book if I want to get a copy?
Yeah, they can contact me on my website, davidbeard.co. Postage is a bit of a challenge, so I do sell them in the clinic that I work at in Netherlands. But if they contact me, we'll try and get it to them somehow. And if they're happy to pay the postage, that's fine. But unfortunately, postage is expensive. But yeah, contact me or through the clinic in Netherlands.
Jeremy, could you put the details in the bottom? Thank you.
Yeah.
Before we go, you did mention that the book is there also for young people to say, well, what do you need to do? What do they need to do? What would be a few short things you could say to young people? Do this.
I mean, I could go on and talk about diet and exercise and stuff. We talked about that. I think one of the key things for young people is work out what they're passionate about doing and what they get value out of doing and contributing, and then follow that. You know, people go into careers for money, etc. And I've made a few choices about business in the year thinking, oh, that'd be a good money maker, and it wasn't the right move. I think I mentioned earlier I did some business coaching for a while and I loved it, but I found I kept being more focused on the person's health in their business than their business. So I realised, well, health is really where my passion was. So I think for young people, finding a passion, but also developing routines early. You know, talk about exercise, getting up and doing some exercise, eating the right food, all those kind of habits. You need to develop those. The sooner you can do that and be managing your health to be as healthy as you can be, the easier it is. It's hard when you're 50 and you put on 20 kilos and you're trying to get health and fitness back. It's easier to maintain it along the way. From a physiological point of view, but also from a mental point of view, if you haven't done anything for 20 years and all of a sudden you're starting out, it's hard work mentally to build those habits and routines. So that earlier in life you can build routines around exercise and eating well and, you know, learning to relax and sleep better and all that. The easier it is, it's hard to change it later. Harder to change it. Not impossible, but harder.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. It's been
Hopefully
fun.
we can get you back and dive deep into a couple of interesting subjects.
Love to.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thanks, David.
Thank you.